All right, guys, welcome back. What we have here today is something I've been getting a few requests to do a video on, so I thought it'd be a good night for that. This here is a UFO, as in EWE and then EFO. It is quite whimsical. You see, you have the little U's. Sheep, lamb. I'm not quite sure what a U is. I'd probably have to look that up. But this is a puzzle, not a box. It looks like a puzzle box, but it, as described by the creator, is definitely not a box. It's more of an assembly piece. And it comes apart into about 23 parts, I believe. And even all those different parts have lots of smaller parts to them. And it has some of the Tracy Clemens vibe to it at first, until you notice the detail put into it. The smaller parts, the exotic woods used to make them, and this is full of mechanisms. So a bit of history on this. I believe that this project was started in 2017 by Kel Snake. And he's known for retrofitting puzzle boxes. So he'll take a box that's really cool that exists in the world and he'll turn it into a puzzle box. He'll also sell plans for that. That means that a lot of his puzzle boxes have things in them I've never really seen that much before. I don't collect puzzle boxes themselves. It's usually like an SD. And with an SD, a lot of stuff is usually walled off. And so there could be mechanisms with magnets and springs and stuff like that that you never really get to see. Whereas with this one, he made it so it can be completely taken apart. There is a bit of whimsy to it with the sheep and the story provided, but by itself it does stand as a very, okay, that was just a hair. Thought there was something wrong with the wood there. A very exotic piece, a very rare piece. This one, I am the fourth owner, I believe. It's been refinished by Kel recently, and then after I solved it, I took it as a personal challenge to upgrade this to more of like an heirloom quality. It might sound arrogant. I've actually talked to Kel about this, so everything's within the realm of his approval. And his basic take on it was that he never made a prototype for this. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity for him to refine or change things up as he went. So there were things that now he would change if he did it again. It's weird though, but since he told me that, on Puzzle Paradise, he did post a prototype, which is weird. Now, to be fair, that one is laser cut wood and there's no mechanisms in it or anything. It's kind of really just the shape. And the shape is important. You're not going to be able to really see it here. Maybe if I hold it in my hand up like this, you can kind of see that it floats. There is a base underneath that is just enough to be, hidden out of sight. When this is on a surface, you're not going to really see the base unless you get really low. So it gives it a little floaty kind of vibe. And what is it? Well, this one actually has a story to it. Each of these U's have a different name. Like I know this is Fran. They all start with an F. I don't remember offhand. They're right here next to me. He does provide a book. Mine had been opened before I got it. Nice quality print though. Different fonts. Let's see, numbered. This one's number 10 of 17. And based on what I know about the puzzle and how it was made and everything, I would wager money that there's less than 10 active working copies right now. I know how collectors are. There are collectors that will break certain parts of this pretty quickly and easily and then not want to actually tell Kel or say anything about it. So those are in collections, and there's some that's probably never even been solved. Now, as far as the names of the sheep, aha, you got it right here. Fern, Fanny, Flo, Fran, and Wee Fay. So Flo is the one spraying fire. That should be easy to remember. Fanny is the one in a tub. I could probably think of a way. Fern is stoking a flame. That's probably the one that you'll have to like memorize. But anyways, what had happened was they create a spaceship and they started to take off, but Wee Fay wasn't down for that. She was not part of the plan, and your job is to rescue her from the spaceship. Now, this is a lot like the door puzzles that were popular. There was, Dark Fairy Door, the Fairy Door, and Puzzle Duck Pastures. And Kel made Puzzle Duck Pastures. Now, this and Puzzle Duck were puzzles he made to look the way they are. They're not necessarily retrofits. And like he says, this isn't even a puzzle box. This comes completely apart. I would say this is more of a frame and a core. And what that allows to happen is you have 4 doors now. Because all of these parts here come off, and then behind them would be a puzzle behind it as well. So almost like 8 doors. It is different than just necessarily a door puzzle. And one could be like, well, I'm impressed that 4 of the doors all are knob activated here, but there is more to it than that. On first glance, you would miss a lot about this puzzle. So let's go over a little bit of, there's a lot of exotic woods used in this. So as you can see on the top here and the bottom and here and inside, there is bloodwood used. This is bloodwood, not paduk. It may have like the pitting of the grain, but it's definitely bloodwood. And in some of the copies, there's more of like the stripe shading, but he's made it where the grain kind of goes, in a direction on each side. There you go. This right here is cherry. This inside here is walnut. This is Pau Amarello, or basically yellow heart. And underneath of it, used on these, and in a few other spots, is mahogany. Right there behind it. That's where the mahogany is. There is also maple here and here. You can kind of see it with the grain. Or it could just be used in layers, and this is ash, because I know there's ash as well, and I know it's on these. On the back sides of these panels are walnut, and they're actually glued down like that. There's space between them. They're spaced out, and only right through here are they actually just cut in and not separated. And then there's a circle. And then on the posts, these are purple heart. They have aged a bit. No puzzle in my house gets any UV, just because nothing in my house gets UV, period. But yeah, so it's just darkened. But that's the purple heart that some people said they had trouble figuring out where the purple heart was on this puzzle. Well, that's where it's at. And then right here, Vengay. And there's more. There's more woods in it, but this is like the main. Now, I'm not a huge fan of blind puzzles, and we'll go through the thought process of solving this. But I would say that it starts off kind of blind. You can turn the knob here up top. It just spins. Doesn't come out or anything. This one here spins completely. This one here, a little stiffer, but it spins too. This one here, it turns and stops. And if you go here, like there's a locking mechanism there happening, or like a spring or something. And then this one here, flow, doesn't move at all. So the first part of this is going to be listening for things to happen. Now, the only way you'll get any action out of this is if you have this turned on its side here. It's here with, there's Fran, sideways. And if you listen, as I turn Fran from perpendicular, upright to upside down, Hear that click? Now she doesn't move. But if I pull, this comes out. And this is our first puzzle, our first mechanism. This one here is this, slides in and out. And this is bloodwood, cedar, and venge. Cut nice and thin, layered up. There was no need to go to this level of quality is what I was getting at with all this. We have venge and bloodwood, bloodwood and venge. We've got our back here, which is a circular piece here that this slider is blocked on until it's at the right angle and it's turned the right way. Now let's talk about the split here. This is walnut glued to this wood. This wood was apparently, and you can feel it, you know, wood glued together in layers and then cut vertically down. So extra, and it's evenly spaced, but not the same as the walnut. A nice stagger effect there. That's just an attention to detail you don't see a lot for things that aren't going to be as well noticed. And while this is one piece of the 23 will pull part, you can see this is made up of many small parts and pieces. And that is the first door, the mechanism to it. So like most SDs, you have to have some kind of way to get in without a tool or anything, just get to that first part. Now, what was behind the door? We've got our X here. It's like a force field. Now, if you look at it, you'll notice that these all move. This one doesn't. This one's like fixed. And you've got this piece here, and it's kind of like a button. So definitely some things to work with there. And there's the lips that this guy was in, because as you can see, it's lipped here. So that's how it stays locked. Now you can play with this enough, and I'm working around my mic, this piece will come out. And this is interesting when you put it back in. We'll find out why. It feels like it kind of goes into like a nothingness. And there's a reason for that feeling. But this is also now a tool. As one of my things to kind of like set this up long term, so it'll last forever, is I want to get rid of the cedar dowels. I have partially, but something like this, I would have to have someone cut ebony so that it, when it was put back in here, it blended again. Probably better even than cedar on venge. But that'll give it strength, because this gets used as a tool a lot. Now this hole means nothing because that's what it came out of. And we also have some of our, I think this is mahogany here and down here. And then this right here is orange, so I would say it's cherry again. And then where does this piece go? Well, right below it, you'll see a hole here. And I'll place it in, and you'll see, there's something there, resistance. And we just use it like a button. And see what moved right there? This. So this pushes in a thing that releases a spring that's pushing on the back of this. Now this can kind of fall out of whack. It's because the back piece of it isn't scored for a metal spring or a metal band that goes into it. So that has been done. And you'll see that this piece moves now. This piece moves now. This piece again is just there. All right, so we've accomplished that. And we have access to a new thing. It's this side. So this piece right here, when pushed all the way down, and this piece is set, you know, normal facing, it slides right out. Now what we have on here is the same type of wood setup, but this has no clips. It's not clipped in. What's holding it in place, see this little dowel right here? It goes in this incredibly cool looking assembly of stuff, and that keyhole. See the keyhole right there? Now what allows it to come out, as you can see in the keyhole right now, there's a block right there. So the dowel could go through, but that the little dowel coming out the side would be blocked by this. And that's what this did here. So this right here moves that up and down. And if you pull it all the way up, you have your gap opened. But you also have a hole there that kind of sets you up for the future. a hole that doesn't quite reach the hole above. So there's something going on there. Also got this guy, and it's got 2 magnets, and it's cool and fidgety. Look at that, click, 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 click. This is the first of many red herrings that Kel has put into this puzzle. This is actually another tool. And not only is it a tool, it's double layered, just for the extra, sex appeal. Not only is this a tool, but it's also just unlocked another part of the puzzle. So, and now I would love to have this one like Cocobolo or something, because it's so thin. Fortunately, this isn't used to like move things internally. It's more just to hold things in place. But it came out of this hole right here, which goes all the way across over to here. And now that this is out, remember this flow didn't turn. Now she does turn. So if you turn and play with it a bit, you'll find out that if you turn her all the way to the right and pull, you can take her right out. And here, this is one of those lips. This was the other lip, and it's only allowed to turn here. And what was holding it in place was this dowel going all the way through and pinning in right there and keeping it to where it couldn't be turned. Fortunately, even though this is a thin cedar dowel, it's being held right here by my fingertips as well. So that makes it to where this is very hard to like break it by turning this wheel. It has that added strength. But we now have our third of 4 doors off. So we're seeing inside the puzzle. We've got our tools here. And this is called the 4-finger force field. If I reset it properly, and this is kind of a sore point for me, then one of the few of this puzzle, and something that I am going to fix, it may, nope, it's locked, good, so I can't pull it apart. What else did we uncover? So we've got a keyhole thing here in this. We've got our X door here, and we've got this here, and this piece still. And then we got this door. That's the one where it turns and kind of like locks in. So the goal now is to figure out how to get this apart. Now, if you look, you'll see the hole here is where this piece was coming out to lock this piece in place. All right, and then again, this used the keyhole. Now, speaking of the keyhole, there's a thing we can do now. If you got curious, you can actually pull this out. Now this, I have to get another set of brass pins, but I'm replacing with brass, just because it looks cool. This is just wood. If it matched the pins I've already put in here, then I would have already done it. But you can only get them in sets of 25, so it's a little expensive. But now that this is removed, this moves freely, and you can push it all the way up to here. You also get a hole here. So a lot of this is going to become important because we are about to start messing with this part. This part's a bit controversial. I say that because it's the part where I broke mine. It's the part where I've heard from other owners that they broke theirs. It's the part where Kel said that if he had thought about it, done more prototyping, that he would have done it with metal. But this right here is most of the puzzle. I mean, granted, we've just solved a lot of little puzzles here, but none of them are, incredibly challenging. It's more like follow the path. You remove parts that are removable and they unlock other areas. But now is where the mechanisms and stuff kind of amp up a bit. And if one was to follow this booklet, though, it says there's 32 moves to open. Although with all the red herrings, they're not listed here as something to do. But if you get to step, I believe, 17 in his book, it would be step like 15 to 17. He tells you that if you turn this all the way to the right, you'll activate a trap door. But here's the thing. If you put a piece in here at the bottom, you can click a little lever. You'll hear it. What's going on inside is there's a bar that goes down in here, and it's cut with different depths, okay? And it also has a brass pin on it that can kind of move. when you turn it to the right, it will click. So there's a bar in there being kind of held with a dowel, right, coming out of it. And that dowel is holding a piece in place. It keeps this from opening. So this on the back of it has two door handles and like a T-shaped piece that slides across, kind of like a barn door lock, you know, with the bar across. And once it goes in here and stays, this can't be opened. And it's held in place by a dowel that pops out and kind of, you know, covers the back of it. That's the thing I'm going to have to like work on, because that dowel also makes it really hard for the piece to slide down and relock when you're resetting it. Now, he thought of this, and that's why you have this right here. This hole up here and this hole. This one does the lever, and that lever has a bar that keeps a tall bar, the one with the dowel that kind of goes out through here. It keeps it from backing up. So that keeps everything locked in place. There's a dowel here, and I'll show you all of this, but I'm explaining it right now very poorly. And when you go through here with the dowel, you can flip that lever and allow that to be depressed. Well, all you really have to do is lean it this way, depress it, and that bar is going to fall out of place. But he created like a trap door, and I fell for it the first time solving it. So what I'm saying is about 4 or 5 steps could be skipped if you just don't do the move. So if you take a piece through the middle here, there is the tension bar that allows this piece to be pulled out. A cool effect of it is if I pull it out, now this part's in the way, so you got to push it down so this could be turned, right? But I'll push it back in, because in a way he wants you to fall in this trap, and I'm sure most people will fall in the trap. So we're going to go ahead and just go through the process so you can see everything that can happen in the solve. But just saying that if someone got lucky and tilted this away and just flipped the switch and decided not to mess with this again, you'd skip a whole lot of the puzzle really there. But who's going to figure that out really? To skip that when it's so blind and you have to think and know of so many mechanisms, that's where I give it the concession, because you're most likely going to fall into this trap. So let's turn it, and you hear it click, and now it won't go back. So it's kind of like when you put a key in a trick lock and the key won't, and now it's stuck in there. So now we're here, right? And that's where you're supposed to now take this piece, go through this spot here in the bottom, flip the switch, which allows this to be turned back as how I described it. Now you're supposed to go in and push the middle and realize that it allows this to be pulled out. So now this is raised up. We're going to push this in, okay? And then all we do is come back here, and we come over here again. And basically what we're going to do instead of using gravity is we're going to lower that lever, and then we're going to use the bar that's on this made of brass to push that bar out of the way that's blocking this with the dowel. So the dowel is moved. And again, at the end I'll take the core out and show you all this, because like I said, it's hard to describe. But let's see here. Pull this up. And basically we're just getting behind that bar and pushing it out. And just to make sure we did it, we can just do the gravity thing here, like this. And the dowel should now be free from behind this piece. So if I lean it this way and give it a, you know, a little bit of tap, that piece in there should slide out of the way. And no, I'm still locked in. So it means I didn't get the bar out of the way. So I'm going to do it without showing it so that I can get a better angle on it here. Okay, that should do it. Now, I will say that I had this Ren wax Q-tip style multiple times until the wood absorbed it completely and it started creating a barrier. And this was actually like moist to the touch, it seemed, for a while, which made this piece slide a little bit slower. Wiggle it out. And there it goes. So I'm going to probably take the Renaissance wax off this spot here, now the back of that, because look, gravity is not trying to be your friend with this one. When you put these together like this, you have a very small opening to get into there, and then that's how you have it locked. And then it falls out back this way, and that was the problem I was having. So we're going to de-wax that because was staying in place. Now behind it you have this, and so the pin was pushed back, as you can see here. Now this can be pushed all out to about here, and that's what the bar I was working with was. So that's the wall, or the four-fingered force field, which is the trickiest part of the whole puzzle, getting through that whole sequence. Now again, if you know how it is, you can skip it just outright almost, but that still isn't going to help you with this. So this here I'm going to de-wax, because that was too much. It should just slide in and out pretty freely. So now we have all of this. We'll keep adding to the pile there. And we have this now. And we still have a full another door here. So this mechanism here is tricky. This isn't doing anything. There's a hole here. That'll make you wonder what it's for. And then we have this one. And remember when, it had that mechanism? Well, you'd be tempted to try it and then try this. And look at that. Now it moves. So if you pull this back and undo it, you'll free the door. What this was this spring. And I'm going to replace all the springs in here with brass ones. Brass or gold. Mostly just for looks. So there's that. So what was happening was, that's on a spring mechanism there. And so every time this came out, it was pinning into this. But it would only pin into this while it was in this locked state. So when you release this, it was just holding this right here. So you weren't able to actually pull the dowel out because it was just held by tension. So you have to open it, pull the dowel out, then release it. And then you have this, and as you can see, it has the lip, and this has the lip as well. Right there. So well designed there. That's a cool mechanism. More things, like this door is a complete mechanism. And behind it, you have the dowel. You have this Vengay cog, yellow heart, and mahogany. What do you call this? Like a ticker. But you also have a dowel here holding it in place, keeping it from moving. And you have this up here, which is maple, I believe. Now, if you take this piece right here, and you can probably do this with your fingers, but this is intended, you can pull it up. So now it's brought up a bit, and you can kind of see some wood and dowels behind it. The point of this is that you can now slide this piece down. There you go. And there's 2 holes left. This one is used on reset, I believe, but this one here is our final goal. It only takes this dowel, and you'll feel a springy button there. And there goes Ewe Efo. And as you can see from here, when I put the dowel in and push, you're moving that out of the way. And Ewe Efo herself has this groove here that was locking it. There's the mahogany back, basically yellow heart front, and you have the snake from Kel Snake. Now at this point, you're technically done, you know. The puzzle has been solved. You can start putting it back together. But as an added feature or bonus, you can very easily with your fingers unscrew these brass nuts here. And these posts are not going all the way through the post to the bottom to the screw. The screw mounts to this, and then there's a spot about this deep in where these bits are glued in. So just in case you ever own one, you don't want to over tighten these nuts. As you tighten them, the wood will compress a little bit, and that's how you know when you're there. Because otherwise you can strip them right out of that post. And then you're going to have to get it glued back in and everything. You'll see as I've been going through this, a little bit of Ren wax coming off in places. Here's another screw to be replaced with brass. It not being attached to this like permanently does irk me, but it does work religiously. And you can see on the back here the walnut is cutting away. So we'll put the base, and if you're going to remove this, you're going to want to take this part out. Obviously this part comes out as well. Look at the back of this piece. Look at all that. Such detail. This is a red herring. This doesn't do anything. This side is clear. This side is clear. Oh, and you take out this piece. And now you can remove the core. And the way to remember the way the core goes back in is the 5-finger death grip side has notches cut into the edges here. It's all specially cut. And here is the core. This doesn't remove. It is doweled in on the inside here. This piece here moves this thing here. So it has this bar and a spring in there. Oops, it's hit my mic. And that's what moves that in and out. This piece here we'll get into last. It's a beast. And it's hard to kind of show this, but this right here has that metal band in it pushing up against the back of this. That's where it had to be scored. And if this is pushed up out of the way, and that's what we were doing from the bottom, was we were pushing on this piece right here, and that's what was pushing that. That's what allows that to pop out. This piece here is just where the dowel goes into from this piece turning, and that's mostly it. Now the main mechanism of this is right here inside. You'll see this here, this thickness. You'll have this. Now this was pushing through this hole, and what that does is this moves out of the way so that this can go in and out. If it's there, it can't be pulled out. If you move it, it can. So that's what that was doing. Now here's the bar I talked about a bunch with the dowel. Now honestly, I like taking it completely apart. So when I reset it, I normally just reset it by hand here. Basically how this works is when this part here is brought down, and let me show you the brass, because you can see this one. I'll have to push this back out. Let's see here. Now, I will give them a lot of credit. There's a lot of really precise measurements to make this part work the way it does. So that's brass, and a lot of people break theirs because it's cedar there and very thin, less than 1/10 of an inch, almost 1/11 of an inch. So when you go, you have to have just enough to click it, but not allow that bar to come free naturally on its own. This has to be pulled down, and then see. If I lean it, see, it automatically wants to fall back this way, and now it's behind a latch on this piece right here. It's hard to show, but right here on my finger where it's touching, there's a little dowel there as well too. So when that's leaned back, like this, and that's depressed, it locks this piece from even sticking out. So that's why it's hard to actually lock the thing. So what you're going to do when you're properly resetting is you go through here to push on this while pulling down on the bottom here. And that allows you to push this bar up, which sticks that out. But what I was saying about before is you don't have to go through the whole process of, you know, setting this right and pulling it out and going around, because if you just give the bar, you know, if you just push down on that thing and wiggle it a bit, that bar is going to fall back anyways. And now it's locked out of place. But unfortunately, it sticks out just enough here when it's out of the place it's supposed to be locking that it still stops this piece from locking into place. It'll get like in here and hold it. So you need this to be able to pass through and lock in. So let's put it all together. I'll put the top back on. And I don't know. We'll see where are we at on time on how I reset this bar. I'll show you how it's supposed to be done at least. So also on the bottom, one last thing you'll notice, this does nothing as well. So this is a red herring. As you can see on this side, that's literally just held with a dowel. So this is a red herring. This whole mechanism right here could technically be treated as one. This is a red herring here. What else on here was a red herring? We'll put it back together. This whole dial part was, there's quite a few. So first we got to put the core back where it belongs. Now this side is the side with the notches. That's the same as the 4-finger force field, which means it should slide right back in. So we've got that back in. This piece here, this notch here is for the lock. So as long as it coming up, you know, unlocks, yep, then that's in there in the right direction. And then we will need to replace this part here, which is easy. We're just going to put the mahogany back, yellow heart front, slide it in here, and pop it in place. Make sure it's pushed in. Now this whole thing is back to where we can just put the top back on. Now, as far as the top goes, this post right here goes to the right of the gear, I believe. Yeah. So it goes just like that. And the gear part is facing me right here, because it's the gear where you're going to push the pole through and push that out of the way. That's why that's important. And you'll see everything's super simple except for the 4-finger force field. So, and also a lot of those springs are going to be replaced gold finish, like the brass bar. These two I want changed with exotic woods, and in this piece replaced with brass. And I think that'd be a nice amount of touching up to it to kind of up the look inside and increase the longevity of the life of it. So let's go ahead and free this. There we go. And we need to work backwards through it. So this is the last one that went on. This is the one with the spring door. So we put this here, pull back on it, do that, now release it, and let go. Now it's locked. This one is going to be the hardest one to put back. Oh, well shit. I put that back and here we go. There is enough stuff going on that you can make some mistakes. Oh wow, I'm gonna have to go through the whole process here. Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna do this with my hands quickly. There we go. Let's go ahead and get, she was supposed to go back in first. So, oop, that was dangerous. I got caught on my finger as I pulled it out. And that's why I want stronger wood for those. Now that's back in. All right, now we go ahead and put this back together. Okay, that's good. I'm not going to explain the door again. Okay, now we're back. And it looks like we have our dowel out. So what we're going to have to do here is pull the latch and push in on the dowel. There we go. Now it's out of the way. Still wants to pop out though, a little bit. And that's what I meant by it being tricky to do. Now what I'm going to try to do here is actually just kind of rub off the Ren wax. I should probably take like a little small scraper to it, because this is layered on pretty good. And then the four-finger force field, this side of the hole. So this is the side this comes down. We need the wax off of that, like majorly, so this slides more freely. Now, putting this back in is a bit tricky. You're going to put this in here, because that's the way it goes. You'll see the magnets up here, magnets on top here, and then you need to pull this back enough so you can do this with it, so it'll fit back in. You lift up a little bit because there's grooves for it to fit, and there it goes. Now that's completely to the right now. What we need is for it. Now, the best way to do this, see how they're not lined up? You know they have to be lined up perfectly for that thing to go through that groove. So the best thing is to pull them both up like this. And we're going to tap it in. That way, when I put the stick through this here, and, well, here, pull up on this, and through here at the same time, I can pull down on the lever and push that bar into place. Let's see here if it can come out. Yeah, it's not bypassing that lock anymore. So let's go ahead and lock that door on. That's this one right here. You go back in on the right, you lift all the way up, push in, go back down, and then we have to take this piece and go all the way across. And you might have to wiggle it, the handle there, for that to go all the way in, like that. And now that's back to doing its thing. You don't want to forget this part here. So when this is in proper position, you should be able to go straight into the hole there. If not, you can look at it in the light. And I can see it's pointing straight out now. This dowel is, you know, relatively short. So let's see what I got here. Yeah, there we go. Oh, it stuck to my finger as I pulled my finger out. Okay. And now that's back in play. This here, we need to use this bar to get this part closed again. So let's go ahead and put that back on. We put this face up, so it wasn't really tricky there. It doesn't have to be turned, the knob, to actually work. It's made to make you overthink it. Now that those are put back properly, push the center in that locks these in. We put this bad boy back, and I didn't show the hole it goes into, but basically on the other end of the box or core, there is a square of Vengay that's been cut like a conical shape inward, so that you don't have to aim perfectly. It just kind of guides it in, and that's what that feeling of floatiness is. And then finally, this one here, you need to have it active. Now you could actually set this up where this is face up as a solve, but that'd be kind of dumb. So we put it in as upside down. We turn it to the right to let the thing drop. We turn Fran face up, and now we're locked. Now all 4 sides are locked. The entire box has been put back together. Needed nothing but the tools provided. And you have a pretty sweet piece here. This is cool to look at. All right, my thoughts on this. First off, this is my centerpiece on my collection. It's top, back, middle of my shelf. It's the most I paid for a puzzle. This was $32.50 at auction. Right now, I wouldn't let go of it for less than like $4 because of the time I put into it, and kind of reworking some of it and the plans I have. But I don't really intend to think about selling it. Having something nice like this is a way of kind of seeing where you've been in your life, what you've accomplished. This being worth a down payment on a car or a used car is a statement itself. It is whimsical with the sheep. I think it's kind of cute. Unfortunately, maybe a kid would think so too. These U's weren't pressed into the glass all the way, so we have some that on certain angles you can kind of tell they're not pushed all the way in. But other than that, this, for being not really prototyped or anything, is quite an accomplishment from a design standpoint, and from a wood making standpoint too. Everything's fit, everything's flush, everything works. There's lots of springs and mechanisms inside, which is kind of what Kel is known for. When it's all assembled, and I didn't really give you guys that view, when all the doors are back on and all the dowels are in place, and it's kind of in its lock state, it is kind of cool to look inside of. Doing that left-handed is a bit odd, but here we go. And as you can see, there's that part I was talking about with the conical. Everything's in there, in place, ready to go, well thought out, good space management. He says you can't put anything in it because obviously you wouldn't be able to work anything if there was a part in there blocking it. So to him, it's not a box. I say it's not a box because it comes completely apart into all these different things. I wonder sometimes if some of the more advanced SD puzzles that I've done in my life had a bunch of springs and levers and things like that hidden in them, or why they wouldn't show off what they've done. And let's see here, I believe, yeah, put it back that way. And so this is a great piece. It looks great on the shelf. It has a lot of exotic woods in it. It's a nice size, 5.5 all the way around, squared. And, oh wow, I did that weird. And I think it has a great sequence to it. Honestly, now if I was to have written the book here, even if I intend for you to go down that path, and here's the thing, when I first fixed that part that broke, he didn't quite remember exactly how the mechanism and everything still worked. He said he'd have to put it, get his hands on it, that they were all a little bit different. And so I fixed it, I thought, and I was able to skip a lot of the parts because the dowel I made was too long. So when I first turned it, I could unlock the whole 4-fingered force field. So I had to come up with a dowel that was short enough that it still clicked that thing and got stuck when you got there like intended. And that you had to undo the latch to allow that brass dowel to come back around. Now, as far as the brass dowel coming out and pushing out that bar, it's all a nice sequence of mechanics there. But I do feel like a lot of puzzlers might have gotten frustrated, and the temptation of having access to just opening the top and seeing inside might have been a bit much for them. I would imagine that the complexity of the blindness in this is a bit tricky. Even though eventually I did turn this thing on its right hand side and turn this and heard a click, and it was after like a day or two of messing with everything, and then finally I had it hold in the right direction. had it held, I guess I should say, in the right direction. And I turned it, and the knob stopped. And I think at one point, on like day one, I actually got the knob to stop, and the mechanism had worked. But then I leaned it back and turned it some more, and just kind of didn't catch what had happened. The booklet here shows 32 steps, though, and there's a lot of things in here that I probably wouldn't have considered a step, like hockey stick removed. You know, that's just, adding numbers. So I would say that this is more like a 25 step puzzle, which is still fantastic. 25 is a ton of steps. And when they say that, it's only 23 parts, I would say it's more like 40 or 50 parts, because once you get it all apart, I mean, every part has tons of little parts to it. There's a lot of mechanisms going on inside the core. So for all of that, this is probably the most involved puzzle that I've ever encountered. I mean, there's more going on inside of this than a keep locked or a pop lock or anything, for sure. Those might have, not keep locked is more like thematic and kind of dense with how it all works. This is more dense with like mechanisms that you have to solve, where with keep locked, it's more about pulling everything apart and maybe getting past a mechanism here or there. But a lot of them you'll find naturally, kind of like a Juno. With Juno's puzzles, you're not really challenged until the very end, when you have to put a few mechanisms together to kind of make something happen usually. But until that point, you usually get a tool where it's like, oh, by the shape of this tool and, the steps in which I got it, it obviously needs to be used for this. And then you may try to use it for that thing, and it may not work immediately, but eventually it will be the thing that fits, square hole, square peg type situation. With this, you get pulled into a little bit of you have a lot of that. Figuring out the walls, getting them all off, figuring out the mechanisms, and it was really quite cool. It was like a different puzzle almost each time. It was like a different door, different puzzle. And then they led into each other. They weren't just isolated things. So that was very cool. Maybe more, I was kind of, when I first I felt, when I noticed that there wasn't a key to go in the keyhole, I was a bit like, but I realized that that's actually just this is that key that's going in the keyhole with the actual tooth of a key that gets locked in here. It's just different. I just thought it was cute to see a keyhole engraved into the center of like a door type thing, and thought it'd be really cool to have an actual key that you found to use with it. But beyond that, no. And some people say this is really fragile. If you notice, I've been tapping it and laying it down and setting it up. I'm pretty confident with it, and that's because it was refinished by a Kel, and then I've reinforced a lot of parts of it. Like I pulled a screw out of one of these, by tightening it too much. So I took wood glue and redid the whole thing. And I was in touch with Kel the whole time. He offered to do video chats with me, everything, so that everything could be put back to form. But the only thing I actually ever broke was the brass dowel that I replaced. So the rest of this is more like an idea of what I'd like to do. Some of it's so built deep into it that I'm just not even going to mess with it. So I couldn't do like all the springs, because I would literally have to like heat treat this and unglue parts, and I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not undoing any work. I'm just going to replace things that can be replaced, like the long dowels on the sticks. They're cedar. They make me nervous. One's really thin. One gets used a lot. If that one was ebony and thin, it would be more susceptible to cracking, like breaking brittly, but nothing in there is that much force. So it's more about just being able to push in there and tap and pull without it ever really wearing down or flexing. And quite honestly, the cedar is fine. I could solve this a million times with the cedar. The only thing that cedar in there that was really a danger was that long bar that had it at the end used to push open the bar for the last part on the four-finger force field. And because it gets caught and you can go back, and if it's being held there, it's very easy to break cedar that's 1/11 of an inch thick. So that was replaced with brass, and now it's very sturdy. The rest would all be just for visuals, I think, at this point, like brass or gold springs, exotic wood dowels, and just make it more unique of a piece, I think. Like I said, I don't know how many are actually floating around there that are fully functional, because I just know how people are. And so it's just a very rare puzzle. They came out at $1,200 when he first released them. Now it's about 3,500. People will say $5,000 and $6,000. I got this for 33 shipped. The puzzles I sold to get it, I had already sold. I did deals with them to kind of get those puzzles for free. So me personally, I'm only in this for like 350, 400. That's what makes it easy to keep. But that's part of the whole hobby, is, making all those deals and everything to get what you want in the end. So I really have no reason to have to sell this at any point unless I just want the money, right? And I do see it as a project to make like a long, lasting version of this. I feel like by design, some of the stuff on here is prone to wear down over time. And so that's the parts that I want to reinforce, making this last, as an heirloom piece. You only have one puzzle, you give up the hobby or something, and you got this sitting on your shelf. You definitely got a conversation piece. You have a piece where if you're, in your 20s or 30s now, by the time you have grandchildren running around, they're going to want you to tell them all about it because you're not going to let them touch it. They're going to see the sheep and stuff and want to play with it, and you're going to be like, no. And it's going to be locked behind a case or something. I don't have kids, so that's not an issue. But that would be the one worry. Kind of like Turtle Trip, is that people will treat it like a toy, and maybe not see that this is like, it's very easily a $3,000 plus item in my hand that I could just throw for $3,000 to somebody and they'd happily, please choose me, but I wouldn't because I put more than that into it and more time into it, and a lot of time just learning it to understand it well enough to be able to kind of reinforce it and build it up. So that's UFO. On my scale of rating puzzles, I give this 4.99 spaceships. It's very cool, very rare, very exotic, very well made. A lot of intricacies in here, and it's quite a sequence. I'm sure once I put all these things, I kept accidentally stopping my recording. Once I put all this together, the whole take it apart and put it back together is probably involved, and that's why I got it. I like SD assemblies where you have to go through this whole procedure to take something apart and build it, and if there's like locks and things like that in the process that you have to kind of work through and all that, that's even better. So that's a little Ren wax there. You're not likely probably going to get your hands on one of these. I hate to be that guy in these videos all the time, but there's probably 3 of these floating around that people would be willing to sell. The rest all have theirs in permanent collections, and actually now I want to keep an eye on Kel. I saw his new cigar box he sold for like 700 and something. I got to see what the insides of that looked like, and it was more of that type of stuff like this: exotic woods, dials, things sliding and moving and stuff like that. So he's definitely unique in our hobby because there's not a lot of people making stuff like he does. So they do tend to be a little bit more, like a Juno would be more, make it more guaranteed, right? Whereas this is a puzzle collector's puzzle. You need to know your hobby before you try to mess with something like this, because you could do a lot of damage very easily. And the designer made it, wasn't thinking that he didn't care, and why should he? He was designing a puzzle with 32 moves to him, tons of exotic woods and parts and lots of mechanisms. He's chasing his dream. And I would say out of all of Kel Snake's puzzles, that many consider this to be his masterpiece so far. the masterwork, the T11 of his pop series, so to speak. So I'm proud to own it. There was three people before me that owned it. Two that I was trying to get it from, and one I was successful with. And I said to everybody that the buck stops here. So my goal as a puzzle hobbyist now is to try to maintain my lifestyle properly enough that I don't need to sell this for something. And that's when you start getting into collecting more higher end stuff. I've recovered two of the pops that I've had in the past. I'm now trying to recover the best puzzles I had that I lost for different reasons, like waterfall Sapel lockbox. Really hard to come by those. I have one now. I had one, it got damaged, and so I wasn't able to. Well, I was able to keep it, but I didn't want a damaged one. So I'm at that point now where I buy less, but what I'm buying is more, and what I'm chasing after is more. And I've been in those phases too, but I believe now it's more like I want a shelf of stuff that just is memories and things that have great stories to them. And so it does mean recovering some things I really loved, or was just super curious with that I never got to finish or complete or enjoy long enough, with ownership. So just some thoughts about, the hobby and having things, useless nature of that much monetary value. Because in general, this is a pretty useless thing to have, except for yourself. It's an object of beauty that you can interact with and spend a lot of time with, breaking it down, taking it apart, putting it back together, understanding it, understanding the thought process that went into making it, appreciating the level of work and creativity that took to come up with it. And that's when you really get into the deep end of this hobby, and why some people are so invested in it. So happy holidays, everybody, whatever you celebrate. Or if you're like me and don't celebrate anything, then, awesome. Have an awesome December. And hopefully, with everybody's mind states that seem to change along with the new year, then your new year will be awesome as well. So we all go through those phases. We are unique creatures. So enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video and really got to understand and a taste of what UFO is about and what it's like to solve it. That's why I kind of talked a lot about it and did it really slow and everything. So you kind of get a sense of how it all works and live vicariously through me, right? Now, that's what I do with a lot of you. So have a good one, everybody. Thanks for watching, and peace.